Well, hey everybody, this is Wileen Benson, and this is our masterclass for December 2020. We have a couple of new people. It's the first time on a masterclass with me, and super excited to have you guys. Thank you for joining us. Thanks to those who are old-time masterclass residents. Excited to have you here too. So thanks for being here. These masterclasses, I started doing these about June was the first one that I did on Zoom, where I was actually recording it and kind of turning it into a class, that people could watch later. But I did a couple of months before that. Prior to that, I was inspired to do a couple of classes just here in my home. I just felt like, actually it wasn't a couple months before that. It was before COVID. So it was early last year, I think in January, or maybe even December last year. I can't remember. Suzanne, maybe you can remember, because I know you were one of the ones that actually attended one of those at my house. And I was just inspired to gather people, kind of small group, and just November, December, Suzanne said. So it's been a year since I really had the inspiration to do this. And it's just been such a blessing to be able to look back at what these master classes have produced, the inspiration that they have created for people, and the changes that people have made in their lives because of these master classes. And I'm just so grateful that I have been recording them now, because people come to me with different concerns, or needing some extra help and support in a certain area. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you need to watch. I just told somebody that today. You need to watch the power, harnessing the power of Christ, that masterclass that I did in August, I think it was. And it's just been so great to have these resources to be able to send people to, just free resources that people can go to. So thank you for being here. I realize that some of you are here because you are loyal masterclass participants, and thank you. And super grateful for you being here. And I think there's also people here who are kind of thinking about the new year, culminating all the master classes together. And now we're like super ready for this new year to start. And this idea of goal setting according to the natural flow, the natural order that God put in place when he created the earth, and to make it so that it multiplies and replenishes itself. I mean, we all need that. This last year, 2020, has been a little bit crazy. And as we start into 2021, we have no idea what's coming. But I do know, and I can promise you that if you order your life after the natural order of things, the way that God set this earth up to be, and just constantly have eyes on Christ, looking to God for your answers, no matter what 2021 has to bring, you will be ready for it. You'll be okay. You won't feel the challenges that other people are feeling, regardless of what's happening in the world. Your life is going to be simple and easy. Isn't that cool? I just love, you guys can put stuff in the chat anytime if you're wanting to share any thoughts. It's December, and people typically begin to think about how things are going to be different come January. I'm going to do this different. And I wanted to give you this understanding of flowing with the natural order of things, instead of trying to like force success, or just thinking, I'm just going to make things happen in January. Before January, I wanted to give you this information so that you can start out without those imperfect expectations that we sometimes have, when we think about January. I've kind of hinted a little bit at some of the videos and the, posts that I've been making leading up to the class, that January is not the time to really expect to accomplish a whole lot, because we're still in winter. And in winter, seasonally, in nature, what's happening in winter? What's happening in January? Put something in the chat. Just tell me what's happening in January, typically in nature right now. I can see some of you typing hibernate. Snow and cold, hibernation. Yes, all of those things. And what's happening with seeds? You know, we think about sometimes like planting seeds if we're setting goals. What's happening with seeds in January, December and January? They're dormant. Yes, that's right. That's absolutely right, Tyree. And I know you're an expert on that because you're an expert gardener. So you know that if we are trying to make things grow in January, they're just going to die because it's too cold. Unless we live in some tropical location where everything stays the same. But typically, according to God's plan, things kind of go up and down and they're seasonal. And that's what we want to talk about today is getting into flow with that seasonal mindset. And if you did not, we are going to be referring a little bit to that seasonal mindset chart that I sent you. So if you just barely registered and you didn't get it in your email, you can go to Facebook on the Lord's Way to Wealth Facebook group. And you might have to scan down just a little bit, but there's a chart that has like a picture of the 4 seasons kind of in a circle. And, or it's, you know, the I don't want to confuse you because the little banner about the class has a seasonal thing in a circle too, but it's like a big landscape picture that there's like a big circle and it says autumn, summer, winter, spring, and 3 months under each one with a word next to it. So I'll give you a heads up. We're going to be referring to that a little bit later. And it's called, the middle of it says the 4 seasons of success. And it's called your seasonal mindset chart. Yeah, so somebody's showing it as, oh, I have a picture of it right here. Well, mine's in black and white, but that's what it looks like. It's in black and white, but it's in color if you look it up on your Facebook, on the Facebook group, Breakthrough with, or the Lord's Way to Wealth Facebook group. All right, so we're not quite ready to jump to that yet. So you have some time to pull that up on your computer. And if after our time together today, you feel a little bit more at ease with accomplishing your goals and knowing that if you just follow the seasonal mindset chart throughout the year, you'll always be in God's timing. If you knew that at least that would happen after our time together today, would you feel like your time is well spent? Just raise your hand or put yes in the chat. If you feel like your time would be well spent, if you knew that you could be more at ease with your goals, and that if you follow this chart, you're going to be in God's timing. Yes, absolutely. Got some hands going up, definitely. Yes, thank you. Awesome. All right, well, that is what my intention is for you today. So I know that we only have like 90 minutes together today. So we're not going to be able to really go too deeply into any one season. But I'm hoping to give you kind of an overview and really focus on maybe the season that you're in right now so that you'll at least have a starting plan. Okay, so does that sound good? We'll give you some kind of steps or, you know, some things to begin, at least for January. And we already know December is kind of like rest. So you got Christmas coming up and family and holiday and all that kind of stuff. So just do what you want to do. Just feel, you know, that desire to retire, the desire to like cuddle up in a blanket and just drink a warm cup of cocoa or something. Read a good book. I think on our gratitude call a couple of days ago, I told everybody, post in the Breakthrough with Gratitude group your favorite classic book that like the information in it never goes out of style. And I don't remember if anybody did that or not. I can't remember if I checked to see if anybody had done that, but that would be a good thing to do in December is just like get all those books out that you've been meaning to read and take some time and do that. That's great for December. And then we'll talk about a little bit later, we'll talk about what's due in January. Okay. All right. So I do encourage you to write questions down. I'll kind of like take a breath or a drink or something. And I'll say, okay, does anybody have any questions about that? So write your questions down. And that way, as you know, as I go through this, if I happen to answer the question, then you can say, oh, she answered the question. But if I didn't answer the question, when I say, okay, does anybody have any questions? Then you can put that in the chat, okay? Anna Marie says, I get more reading done in the winter months than any other time. Yes. And I remember I haven't done it as much lately. I love to crochet and embroidery and, you know, do some of those um, hand like needle art things. And I used to do tons of that in the winter. And now with my business, you know, that's kind of year round, I don't have quite as much time in the winter, just like downtime. But I do love to do stuff like that too. Reading and those needle arts are really fun. Put in the chat if there's some really cool stuff. I think I asked on Facebook also if you had like your favorite self-care tips or self-care regimen or something like that. And I know we had a couple of responses on that. So maybe in the chat, go ahead and write some of the things that you love to do in the winter. Because I think sometimes we just feel like we have to be constantly doing, and that if we take a break, if we rest, it's like there's something wrong with that. But that self-care, I know Mary is really well-versed in that, taking care of yourself. And, you know, there's just some wonderful ways that we can take care of ourselves. And it's not even really so much like filling up our cup so that we can go help others. It's just following the natural flow of creation, you know, just allowing yourself to cuddle up and do those things that you really love. It's just part of, I think the abundant flow is believing that you're worthy, and that's not an entitlement thing, but just believing that you are meant for to do, and you're also meant to relax. I mean, God gave us 1 day a week for rest, so you know that that's important to him. Mary says, self-care for me is daily yoga and baths. I love that. Tyree says, I love time to skin brush, stretch, stand or exercise on my vibrating plate. Awesome. I love my skin brush too. I always do like my elbows and my feet, and I love that too. I think that's the kind of skin brush that you're talking about. Exercise too. I love my skin brush too. Awesome. Everybody needs a skin brush for Christmas, apparently. Awesome. Thank you. Wonderful thoughts. All right. So we are going to jump right in, and I'll give you as much as I possibly can in the time that we have together tonight. Okay. I'm one of those people who loves to check things off. I love it when I can see what that I have a goal and that it has been accomplished. And I can take that goal off my vision board. It's like checking something off. How many of you raise your hand or say yes? If yes, so Mary's raising her hand. Yep, lots of Anne. Yep, love to check lists off. Suzanne, Tyree, lots of hands raised. Okay, awesome. And yes, that type of a person tends to want to be like an accomplisher, right? You want to get things done. And so I think people who love to check things off and like to, you know, put things up on their vision board and get them off as soon as possible, you're probably some of those people that have the hardest time just relaxing and just, Mary's nodding, and just allowing yourself to go with the flow. And I know I felt that way too. Tyree says she loves to read too. Yes, that's another really great, great self-care thing. So I also, so I also am like a New Year's resolution goal setter, or I have been in the past, and I'm actually really good at staying committed. So a lot of people aren't good at staying committed because, you know, the natural tendency is to want to just relax and just let those seeds kind of gestate in the ground. But I'm actually usually pretty good at staying committed. Those of you who know me know that that's true about me. But I also have noticed that I burn out, and my goals tend to stay on my vision board a little longer than I like if I am like really pushing through to try to accomplish those goals. Anybody else have those situations happen where we've got some more self-care things? Happy that I started going to exercise and dance class again 3 times a week. Good job, Anne. And yeah, Tyree says, I have such a hard time if I'm not working towards something. Great. So let's see, Mary says, I used to crochet snowflakes. I've had a desire to work on those this year. Haven't done it yet. Awesome. So give into those desires. Yes. Because those are things that you can do. I think a lot of times we judge ourselves, and if it's fun, then there's something wrong with that. We shouldn't be doing it if it's fun. But these are the things that our natural desires, our body, just really wants to do. And so we're still doing, it's just doing different things. Okay. Anyway, so like I said, I have a tendency to set these goals. I can stay really committed, but a lot of times the outcome is not exactly what I'd like. So that was all until this last year. Okay, so Tyree, yes, I do so much better when I have something to look forward to. Yes. So this last year, I somebody introduced this idea of seasonal goal setting and just allowing yourself to flow with the seasons. And so I just took that idea and ran with it and created something really amazing in 2019. And then I put it into practice in 2020. And so this year, when I decided to live according to God's timing and with the order of nature, this whole year was like so easy. And I felt like I accomplished so many more things. I was able to do so many more things. Like this summer, in the past, I would be like, oh, I'm too busy for that. And I wouldn't be able to do some of the things around the house that I would want to, around the yard that I would want to. But that's actually what kind of started this whole thing. I had started out with the seasonal goal setting in January with the seasonal mindset. And then in March, I got this inspiration in my daily GPS. And those of you who are new to the call, write down June Masterclass, daily GPS planner. And if you want me to, send me a private message and I'll send you a link to that masterclass. In your daily GPS stands for gratitude, prayer, and scripture. One of the things that I teach my clients to do is to ask every day for an inspired shortcut. So this is like one thing that you can do during the day that would be the most important thing for you to accomplish that day. So even if you don't do anything else that day, you've put yourself on a shortcut because you're listening to where God's guiding you and taking you. And so that's why I call it inspired shortcut, because it's coming from God. And I know if it's something that he's telling me to do, it's going to be a shortcut. It's not going to take as long as if me trying to figure it out. So back in March, in my daily GPS, I got the inspired shortcut to take over the family garden this year. And my husband typically has been doing that probably for the last 20 years. I help occasionally, but I'm usually too busy to do that. And so I told him, I immediately grabbed that because I've learned to really listen to those inspired shortcuts and be obedient to them, take action on them immediately. So I told him, and he's like, cool, that's great. One less thing for me. And I kind of think in my mind, I'm thinking he's probably thinking, yeah, this might last a month or so, I'll be back doing it. But I did it all year long, and it was such an amazing experience. And it really has provided the foundation for the masterclass that I am teaching today. And so I'm going to share some of the insights that I received from that. I am going to go ahead and share the notes. I went back and found that day that I received that inspired shortcut. It was on March 30th. And I'm going to read to you what I wrote about that. And this will, again, just kind of be a foundation for what we're going to talk about today. So this is the words I wrote: till and take care of my ground. And I know that was the assignment that God gave to Adam and Eve when he placed them on the earth. He's like, here you go, till and take care of this ground. I've created this earth for you. Now you get to take care of it. And so that was the inspiration. Those were the words that came to me, was till and take care of my ground, my plot of land. And also I saw that as my creations, the physical land and my Lord's Way to Wealth and my gratitude groups, my followers. that was what I considered my ground at the time. And you guys who are in the architecture of life will notice that wasn't listed there because that didn't exist. That was something that was created this year. So it's been an awesome year. All right, so I'll keep reading here. When I don't follow through with an inspired shortcut or a habit I've created for my own benefit, I'm in the energy of rebellion, which is Satan's energy. So if I'm obedient, so this is a question I was asking. So if I'm obedient, does Satan have power over me or have no power over me? That's the way I wrote it. So if I'm obedient, does Satan have no power over me? Because if I'm in rebellion, if I'm not following through with my inspired shortcut, I'm turning away from that, I'm in Satan's power or in Satan's energy. If I am if I've got eyes on Christ, which didn't exist at the time when I wrote this either, but if I'm in God's energy, does that mean that he has no power? And that was a question I asked because it's like, I wonder. And I ask questions like that a lot in my daily GPS, and I will receive divine inspiration on that. So I wrote, because I'm in God's energy, does Satan have no power over me? I cannot serve two masters. Obedient energy attracts love. Rebellion attracts fear. If I seek first the kingdom of heaven, all other things that exist there will be added unto me. And just so you guys know, all of these notes that I'm reading from, that I'm, creating this masterclass from, are going to be in the replay. So you'll have all of that. Betsy says, oh, I love that, Wileen. Till and take care of the land. Awesome. So I so get this. It's in so many ways. Awesome. Love that. Thank you. All right. And then the new beliefs that I created for myself that I focused on after having this inspiration was I am planting my own garden. So right there, it was like, okay, I guess I'm planting my own garden. I get to choose the plants for the harvest I desire. And this is all part of like the law of attraction and asking for what you want to bring into your life. You get to choose what plants you're going to harvest. You get to chance what plants you plant, and you're going to harvest whatever you plant. I plant, watch over, and nurture my garden. I have a green thumb. This was written because I did not have that belief. I had a limiting belief about that. I was like, I don't have a green thumb. My plants are all going to die. But I wrote, I have a green thumb. I just have never trusted myself or the plants before. And that was the truth. It was like, I just believed that I was going to kill the plants. And so I never planted them. But I realized that was just a fear. It was just a belief. So I was like, I have a green thumb. I just never have trusted myself or the plants before. I give the time and energy to aligning my actions with God's cycle of abundance. I'm giving back, returning to him, and he has promised to return to me, pouring through the windows of heaven, recharged abundance. So I felt like anything that I gave back to the land, anything I gave back to God, that because it's scriptural, that whatever you give, you can't outgive God. He's going to give back even more, like 100 times more than what you give. And so I felt like me tilling the ground and planting these plants and everything was giving back, returning to him. And I knew that he had promised that he would return to me, pouring through the windows of heaven, recharged abundance. I return to him, and he is able to bless and multiply and replenish the earth with my offering. And some of these words, I know you guys who have been following me for a while, you'll recognize these words that I talk about, these things about multiplying and replenishing the earth and your offering. These are all things that we use in the architecture of life mentoring, but that didn't exist at this time. This all began because of this GPS session. So I encourage you to do your GPS sessions and ask some of those questions like, if I'm obedient, does that mean Satan has no power over me because I'm in God's energy? Ask some questions like that. You'll get some really cool insights. All right. Any thoughts before we go on?
I have tons of thoughts. But I love, see, there's a little plant right behind me right there.
Awesome.
And I bought that during this summer, or I don't know, end of summer. That I need a plant, and I'm going to keep it alive. So there it is, and it's growing like
It
crazy.
is. It looks awesome.
Yeah,
Good job.
thank you.
Betsy, did you have something? Oh, did you have something else, Mary?
Yeah, yeah.
Go for it.
I was just thinking, I love that I'm planting my own garden, because in business, like Ann and I are
Yes.
in business together, and it is like, it can take over. Like the plants could just take over, and the weeds, and I
Uh-huh.
mean, everybody could want a in. And I get to plant who I was trying to work in all areas. I didn't know what part of the garden to work in, but I said, okay, this is the part of the garden I'm going to work in, and let's see how it grows.
Yes. I love that. And I love that idea of just let's see how it grows, because that's kind of what I did with the green thumb thing, right? It's like, I'm going to plant it. And then, some of these new beliefs, I return to him. Like I'm going to him every day in prayer, asking him to bless this garden and multiply and replenish it, because, I know I can't do that by myself. Awesome. Betsy, did you have something?
Yeah, I was really thinking about the seeds, how brave you are about the green thumb. My dad is like a master gardener, and I felt like I am doing good if I don't kill my house plants, that they're just awesome. And but I've always loved being out, and I mean, I love weeding, which is so weird, but I just really love it. It's just so awesome to see the progress and taking care of it. And
Oh, we're going to talk
um,
about
but
that.
anyway, but I digress. I really started thinking about the seeds, and I know that even the seeds, you need to choose carefully, which seeds and exactly what you want to plant and how far, and that there's a season when to plant them and
Mhm.
what kind of ground they go in, and all this care about the seeds and the land and tilling and watering. But then really it's truly, we can't control the sun and the light.
Mhm.
And so I started thinking about, in God's garden and in those things that he inspires us to do, he provides the sunshine, and sun meaning S-O-N. And truly it's God's hand in the rest of it, like the miracle of the growth and all these other things. Like we can do as much as we possibly can,
Mhm.
but ultimately it's up to his blessings and miracles of the growth. And so we put our faith into it. And so I don't know, I just was really pondering a lot about
Yeah.
the seed part of it and the sunshine.
Yes, awesome. I love that. And you know what? It really is a co-creation, isn't it? Because, I can stick those seeds in the ground, but if God's life isn't in, if the building blocks of the plant are not in that seed, if everything hasn't been created perfectly, that seed's just, it's like a little rock sitting in the ground. So God's, wonderful, all of the building blocks of that seed are placed in there. And then you're right, we can do what we can do, and then we leave the rest to God. And that was one of the lessons that I definitely learned throughout the year. And that was what was so beautiful about the inspiration to plant a garden, to be the one to plant and care for the garden this year, because that was where so many of my lessons came from, was actually being in the garden. And it was all about that. It was all, everything points to God, everything points to Christ. The garden was just an example of the way that, me being someone in God's garden. So thank you. And like all the analogies that we know about, like pruning and all those types of things. I want to just draw your attention to, my daily GPS. I didn't really tell you this beforehand, but the reason that I received that inspiration in my daily GPS was because I was struggling at the time following through with my inspired shortcuts. And those of you who are with me for a long time, you're like, what? Mylene struggles with following through. But yeah, sometimes I would. And and the habits that I had told myself, I'm going to do this, on a daily basis. And I was just like, every day I was not doing it. And so I'll bet you're seeing that in hindsight, all the stuff that I learned, that planting, nurturing, harvesting a garden was the absolute best responsibility that God could have ever given me, to learn about obedience, to learn about the cost of rebelling, to learn about getting in the, like being according to God's timing. There's nothing that he could have inspired me to do that would have been given me this knowledge faster. And so even though, you know, you think about like planting a garden, that's like a whole season's, you know, a couple seasons commitment. And it's like, whoa, that's a big thing. But it was the fastest, it was a shortcut. It was the fastest way for me to learn these things that I learned. Mary?
And I imagine you weren't in the garden 24/7.
No.
So, so that little effort produced big results.
Yes.
That I keep
Yes.
thinking of.
Absolutely. Okay, so Anna Marie has a note here in the chat. Sorry if you're going to get to this in a bit. I'm wondering what goals or creations are best to focus on during the winter months. Okay, good question. And yes, we are going to get to that like right almost immediately, because there are different things that you're going to focus on in different months. So just because, you know, when you think about, okay, we're planting the seed's hibernating, nothing's growing right now, I'm not going to harvest until November or September or August or whatever. So I guess I just can't expect any of my goals to be accomplished until September. But that's not true. There's goals that we can set every single month that will be in alignment with whatever, you know, the mindset, according to your mindset chart, whatever that word is, there's going to be goals that we can set during those each month of the year that will align. And, you know, so you're going to be accomplishing all along. It's just that sometimes we try to accomplish the wrong, you know, do the wrong things in the wrong month. And that's where we start getting frustrated. It's like we're trying, please, sun, will you rise 5 hours earlier than you're supposed to? You know, it's like that. It's like trying to change nature. So great. All right. Makes sense. Thank you. All right. So I'm sure you can see that in a garden, you can't go contrary to God's plan and expect to have a successful harvest. Now, I know we know how to hydro, greenhouse, you know, there's ways that we can kind of get around that, but we're still utilizing the same skill set that God shared with us in the very beginning of creation. You know, we're still following. It's not like you put a seed in the ground and tomorrow you go pick a tomato. There's still, you know, the gestation and everything happens according to nature. All right. So we're going to move into our 3 points that I'm going to be focusing on today. Any last thoughts before we move on? All right. Awesome. Thank you. Great comments. Okay. So I'm going to share a few key pondering points for you. Okay. And then in a bit, I'm also going to share, you know, about this, the 4 seasons of success, you know, the mindset chart, the seasonal mindset chart. So I'll be sharing that kind of along with it. So here's the 3 points that I want to give you today. And I'm actually, for you guys that are here, I'm going to put these in the chat. And then they'll also be, you know, for those of you who are listening to the replay, they will be in the course that I post. Okay, so I'm just going to put them all 3 here for you guys, and then I'll read them. Copy and pasting. Okay, so I think I got them all there, and they're kind of running together a little bit. Not totally like separated, but you'll be able to figure it out. Okay, so the first one is, the first point that I want to cover today is aligning your goal setting with the natural rhythm of nature. So we've already talked about that a little bit. And maybe I'll just go ahead right into that, and then I'll just introduce the other ones as we, no, I'm going to go ahead and tell you all 3 of them. So the second one is, the first one's aligning your goal setting with the natural rhythm of nature. Second one is understanding your purpose in the kingdom. Because like we've talked about, you know, the earth is just like God's garden. It's earth, and he planted and he put animals and people, you know, it's his garden. And so understanding our purpose in his kingdom is the second point. And then the third point is trusting. That's a big word right there. Trusting that your life is easiest aligned if your mindset and your actions are aligned with the times and seasons. So trusting that your life is easiest, aligning your mindset and your actions with the times and season. Trusting that your life is easiest, aligning your mindset and your actions with the times and seasons. So those are the 3 points that we're going to cover. And we'll touch on each of those descriptive words in the seasonal mindset chart as we go through this. So you can grab that if you haven't gotten that yet. Let's see. Okay, number 1, aligning your goal setting with the natural rhythm of nature. So seasonally, nature is at rest in winter. So we've already talked a little bit about, you know, those seeds are just lying dormant. And I, as a gardener, don't have a whole lot to do right now outside, except composting. I'm still taking like all my organic, you know, like the vegetable, you know, peels or I don't peel hardly anything, but like the seeds and, you know, whatever, the stuff that we don't eat, I'm taking all that stuff out still and dumping it out on the garden. I'm preparing the dirt for next year's planting. So winter is the time that I turn my attention typically to indoors, to like things, you know, that I can accomplish indoors, like cleaning, organizing, doing some of those self-care things, or just, you know, the hobbies that we don't really give ourselves time to do in the summertime because there's other things to do outside. So those are the types of things that you can, Anna Maria, as you were asking, those are the types of things that you can set goals in. So give me an example of some goals. And this is just like off the top of your head. So this isn't like, okay, take a deep breath, let's ground, let's find what your goal is. Just off the top of your head, what are some of the goals that you could have in the month of December and January that would be in alignment with nature being at rest?
I guess you could plan. Goal planning.
Okay, so there's actually a month for planning.
Okay.
It's not yet. So still resting. And let me actually, while you guys are thinking, I'll go ahead and share a little bit more about this, the mindset, the seasonal mindset chart. So December, January, and February are considered the winter months. All right. I used to think that winter was like November, December, January, because those were the coldest months, but they're actually, December is like where the winter solstice starts and everything. So it's December, January, and February. And so it really doesn't make sense to set a big goal to have accomplished in these first months of the year. But there are, however, things that you can be doing. So December is all about rest. So we already talked about some of the things that you guys like to do that are, you know, really self-care and just are really healing, or just you love to do, or things like that. So you could maybe think of a goal for that. January is gestate. So that's the seeds are dormant. They're just kind of there and just, you know, sitting there. February is commit. So those are the 3 words that, those are the words that go along with those 3 months: rest, gestate, and commit. So if you kind of use those as a starting out point, what are some goals that you could maybe set in the months of December, January, and February? So Tyree says naps and journaling. Journaling would be a really good habit to get into. And naps, yes, because that's all about rest. Awesome.
Where does play come in? Can we play?
Play, I think you can probably always play. I don't know, because some things like, you know, you can add play to anything. Fun, you know, anything could be fun.
Well, play is also, some play is a form of resting. It's resting from work.
So some play, you might think of like a summertime play would be to, go hike a mountain or something, but that maybe doesn't fit in December because you're resting. So what would be a way that you could play in December?
You can play board games.
Yes, I love that. That's awesome. Connecting is always a good thing too. Let's see. Tyree says, I usually have dreams during naps. So dreaming, imagining. Yes. Betsy says snow angels. That's a form of play. And that's laying down. It's kind of resting.
And where you said connecting, that could be building our SOI for Mary and myself, reaching out and making more connections with potential clients, and just building stronger relationships with friends and
Build
such.
strong relationships. Yes. So it doesn't necessarily have to be like work related.
Mhm.
You could just be like talking to him on Facebook or something, just, hey, I noticed, you posted that you made a pie yesterday. How did that taste? It could be anything. Cross country skiing is what Tyree says. And yes, if that's something that is like a self-care thing, like part of your exercise routine, or whatever, connecting with nature, I think would be a really good thing in those months. Rest, gestate, both of those months, I think would be really good connecting with nature in whatever way feels right for you. Anne?
I actually really like shoveling, believe it or not. I love to be
Okay,
outside in the snow as it's falling down,
awesome.
and cross country skiing or just shoveling or sledding. The kids have to tear me up the
Yes.
mountain.
Yeah, awesome. Great. And all connective things, when you're going out in nature with family and stuff like that. Betsy says, reach out in appreciation, Christmas cards, notes. Yes, awesome. I love that. Tyree says, strengthening relationships, especially with heaven and family. Yes, I love that. Those are all really awesome. Great job. Okay, so February is where we commit. Now, planning comes still a little bit later, but there's still kind of this, I think, there's this desire to start something new, to be different in the next year. And that's why people set those New Year's resolutions, because it's like, oh, I'm going to make sure that this new year, it's going to be different. And so there really is in February an opportunity to commit. So after you have done some journaling, maybe just gestated on some ideas or whatever, February is the time to commit. So is there maybe a goal that could be set in February that would help you to commit? One idea that just came to me is like joining a group that would help you to stay committed to something. Like if you have an idea to, do exercise, maybe you could either form or commit to, having like an accountability partner, like a workout partner, or joining a group that, shares like healthy recipes or something like that. So there's goals that you can set that will help you commit. I think also, because this is it kind of goes along with like organization and things like that that can happen during these winter months, is that you could clear some of the clutter out of your life. February would be a really good time to do that, because you're done with the resting, you're done with the gestating, you're ready to commit. And it's like, okay, if I'm going to commit to this, then I've got to clear my schedule. Or if I'm going to commit to this, I've got to make a space to be able to do yoga every day, or, or 3 times a week or whatever. So that might be a good goal to, do some organization. All right, I'm kind of checking the time and seeing we've got quite a bit still to go through. So I'll let you guys just kind of work on that on your own to finish up winter. And we're going to go ahead and move to the spring months. And we'll just quickly, you've got your mindset chart here, so you can kind of look ahead and maybe be thinking ahead. So you can post some things in the chat about goals that possibly would be good for those months. So March, April, and May are considered the spring months. It's the time when a few blooms start popping because they're waking up from hibernation. So not everything grows in March, April, and May, right? only the cold weather things. And sometimes we'll get, you know, a few like daffodils or whatever in February, but mostly like March, April, May, things will start kind of popping out, and like spring blossoms on the apple trees and things. So a few very early plants like peas or something like that will begin to produce. And they are really a welcome sight, but they're just the promise of the abundance to come. So it's not like the full harvest like we get in the fall. It's just like a promise of things to come. So with March, in February, we committed, right? And then in March is when we decide. So March is where the decisions are made. And I thought that was so appropriate that that was when that inspiration came to me to do the garden. And I had to say, I'm doing the garden. I had to make that decision because it was time. It was time to start, you know, getting the seeds, in fact, I was even a little bit late getting some of those little seedlings started indoors, so that they could be up high enough to be able to plant outside when it was time. So March is the time to decide. And so I'll let you guys be thinking about some goals that you might, just off the top of your head, what you could set in March. And then April is evolve. So in March, we've got, you know, some, we're just we're deciding, you know, what are we going to plant? And then April, we are evolving with the weather, okay, is one way that we evolve, because in April, sometimes we got lots of rain, sometimes it's cold, you know, sometimes we get snow here. And it's like kind of a guessing game to decide, okay, when do I till? Because I can't till too soon because the ground will still be frozen. Or if I till too soon after it rains, then it'll just be gummy dirt. And, you know, so we have to kind of evolve with all the inconsistencies with the weather. And sprouting, that could be a goal for March and April. Good job, Anna Maria, thank you. That could be a good goal. And then May is planning, okay? So you might think May is too late. It's like, well, we should have planned, you know, before that. But at least where I'm at, most of the time, everything is pretty much like the last frost usually happens in May, and it's time pretty much anything can be planted. So March and April, we can plant a few things, you know, those cold weather things, but by May, it's time we can plant everything. And we really do need to plan where we're going to plant, and even like spacing out the planting. So if we're planting corn, we don't want to plant all the corn at once. We want to plan like a row here, and then a row next week, and a row the week after, so that we've got corn coming on, not all at once, but, you know, kind of spread out throughout the summer. So there's some planning that takes place, and also where you're going to plant, like how spaced out everything's going to be. And if I plant the squash here, these tendrils are going to go out like 6 feet this way. So I need to make sure that it's not like running into something else. So that planning has to happen for us to be able to have an easy time later on in the harvest, or when we're trying to get in between the plants to weed and they're too close together or whatever. So, and I did have some of that this past year. That's why I'm saying that. So what are some of the ideas that you guys have just off the top of your head of goals that could possibly happen? And, you know, yes, garden, we're talking about garden because, you know, this is the natural flow according to nature. But what goals, you know, maybe in your business? Like I know Anne has mentioned like things that she could be doing in her business in the winter months. What are some of the things that you could be doing in your business, or connecting with people, or whatever, that would be in this deciding or evolving in April, or planning in May? Any thoughts? Planning, I think there are lots of different steps usually to accomplishing something big. You know, maybe you've got a big goal that you want to accomplish this year, and there's lots of little steps that need to happen. And so that planning in May would be a good opportunity, I think, to kind of break that goal down, you know, so that there's some little mini milestones to achieve. evolving in April, that's a really good time to make some changes within yourself, evolving yourself. So if you've got a specific character trait that you want to develop, or if there's something about, um, your family situation that is not, perfect, that, you'd like to be a little bit easier, you can figure out how, what can I do to maybe evolve to create a better family situation or something like that. Tyree says, so I have had all these ideas. So you're saying I shouldn't be acting on those right now. So yes, you can have the ideas. Definitely the ideas are valid and you want to hang on to those. But the idea is the seed. And so, there's stages that have to happen before that seed's actually going to sprout. And then there's lots of watering and nurturing and things that have to happen before the seed actually becomes, it'll flower and then it has a fruit. Mary, did you have something you'd like to share?
Well, I was thinking more on this, and in the winter months, you can work on your book, you can work on your speeches, you can work on
Yeah.
things like that. And then, and just hone your skills,
Uh-huh.
speaking skills, if that's it. And then, just write your talks, write your book, work on that, pretty like journaling,
Mm-hmm.
so that you can create your, you could just develop yourself in a, I guess it's that maybe working, but it's receiving the inspiration. It's
Yeah.
creating,
Getting those ideas. Mm-hmm.
right. And then writing them out, and for, it depends on what you're doing. And then March, I guess, decide. I don't know. I'm trying to look at this because I'm doing real estate now. Plus I'm doing, some other things. So
Yeah. Well, you guys will be happy to know that after this masterclass is over, I'm going to actually be sending you a full list. Everybody who's attended this masterclass will get a more detailed. I'm going to give you January today so that you can get started. And then I'm going to actually follow up with a whole, a little more detailed section that's got like a little, some bullet points of things to be focusing on for that month. And I think that will open up a lot more ideas as well. So in interest of time, I think we're going to just go ahead and go through the rest of them. We won't take the time to, brainstorm ideas of, how you can goal set during those months. But I think we've got the idea that each month there is something that you can do. The problem that we usually face is, I want it now. I want to be successful now. I want to have this. I want to have the fruit now. I want to be harvesting right now. And that is the whole key to this flowing, with the natural order of things, is knowing that there is something to be doing every month, but the harvest does come in the fall. And I kind of was like, let's just see, and they're definitely like you're getting, just like the peas come up early spring, even while it's still cold. And you'll get a little bit of a harvest here, but the huge harvest, where you're just bringing it all into the winter, for winter storage, putting everything away, for winter, that it did for me, that all happened. August was the Architecture of Life came to me. No, July, Architecture of Life came to me. August was when we did that case study group. And September, we did, and August, we also did the power, harnessing the power of Christ. And then September, we did the 21 days of the 21 day challenge. And then October was when when I did my first group. It's either October or November that we did the first group of the Architecture of Life mentoring. So this was after everything was in place. And that was like the floodgates opened up. So the huge harvest did actually come in those harvest months. And I was getting little, you're harvesting little things all along, but the big harvest came in the fall. So it really did stay true to this system. So Anna Maria says, winter is incubation time where the energy and nutrients in the seeds have incredible potential. Yes, potential. This is where we're really focusing on potential. Winter is a time when we can turn to the light, strengthen our faith that soon we will fulfill that potential and we will sprout up from the earth and see the sun's warmth. And Betsy says, love that, Anna Maria. Yes, awesome, very much. So, okay, so I'm just gonna whiz through the rest of these. June, July, and August are considered the summer months. This is where the work happens. So we're always wanting to work. This is where you actually get to work. And finally, you get to get out there and dig in the dirt and weed and water and train the plants up, rescue the plants from bugs and animals. There's a lot to do. But again, like Mary mentioned, I wasn't out there 24 hours a day. Like I spent, a couple of hours a day, and that was it, like an hour and a half. Satisfaction comes in the work accomplished, even if there's no fruit to be picked yet. So who was it that mentioned that they love to weed because you can look back and see the work that you've done? Was that you, Mary, that mentioned that? I can't remember.
It was Betsy, but I love to
Betsy.
weed. I think it was Betsy, but I love to weed as well.
Awesome. And it is, it's like there's no fruit yet, but we're just like loving this. We can see the accomplishment that's happening. And so June and July and August are those months. June and July, for sure, that work is in there, and it's focus in June and faith in July. So focus on what needs to happen for these plants to really get everything that they need. And then July is faith, because it's like turning it over to God. Okay, I hope we have some rain, and hope it's not too hot, that really kills, these plants or whatever, makes these leaves wilt. And so it's just like all this faith that we put all this work into it, and we just have faith that God's going to take care of the rest. And then in August, we start to notice the results of our labors. So we labor in June and July, and then we start noticing the fruits of our labors. And that's such a time. It's such a fun time. Okay. And then September, October, November are the months of harvest. After all your commitment, planning, and hard work, you have an abundance of fruit. So much that you want to share with your neighbors. And when you apply this to like your business, can you see how this happens? It's like when you have so much abundance and you just feel so much joy for all this work that you've done and the wonderful things that you've learned, and you just want to share with your neighbors. And everything comes full circle. It just makes sense that you would want to receive your bounty and share. And so, okay, so September is celebrate. So that's the time when you're like sharing with your neighbors. You got so many zucchinis that you don't know what to do with, and you're sharing with your neighbors, and it's all part of celebration. And I know I have this past year, I made some grape juice and made some pies, and I shared that, and it was a time of celebration. October is the time to share. So September, you're celebrating all the bounty that you have, and October is the time that you share. You've, put up a lot of fruit and, jam and all this kind of stuff, and it's the time to share. And then November is a reconciliation. So we reconcile everything, all the work that you put into it, it's going to come full circle. You receive the bounty because you produced it and because you did all the work. It's the byproduct of everything, the planning, everything that you did. You're receiving everything according to the work that you put in and according to the energy that you put into it. So if you are all about gratitude and love and all of that, and you've been giving and serving in that, then that's what you're going to receive. And all of that abundance comes back to you in November. It's sort of like karma just comes around, and what you've been sending out returns to you. That's the natural flow. All right. Any questions about that? Anything that we shared so far? Okay, awesome. So what do we do now this month? So we already threw around some ideas of goals. I'm going to read to you the full, like all the bullet points of January, and just kind of listen intuitively And maybe even just take a deep breath right now and listen for what is the one most important thing that I could be doing in January that would help me to gestate and to really get myself into the flow of nature. So in January, the seed is in hibernation. So some of these bullet points, and again, you're going to get a copy of this, so don't worry about writing it all down. Just listen intuitively and know what is the one most important thing that you could focus on to be in the flow with this. Let your ideas and goals organically sit. If we try to implement immediately, we usually fail because it's the time of year for rest and gathering wisdom. Find what is not working and make some new decisions. Don't worry about succeeding at implementation yet. So you could create some new habits, but don't worry about doing it perfectly yet. It's not logically time for those seeds that are hibernating to grow yet. Most people try to take the idea into full flower immediately. It's why most people fail at their New Year's resolutions. So that's what you can be doing in January, is just letting those seeds gestate, knowing that it's not time to implement fully yet, but you can, start thinking about, what kinds of things you might want to implement. Okay. That's what you can do in January. All right. Raise your hand or put yes in the chat if you received an idea of a goal that you could set for January. And also, I'm just curious, how much different does this feel than a typical New Year's resolution? Anybody have any thoughts? Betsy?
I don't know. It's a one word, way.
Way.
It is way different. And I mean, in honesty, goals and we have not always been super close friends through the years. I don't know if there's a resistance there. I'm a checklist girl, and I just always get, beautiful, amazing things. And I look back and I've accomplished those things that should have been goals. And so I've really Betsy-ized my own process. But I really love the thought of looking at looking at nature and following in. And I think that's such a beautiful trend that we're now seeing how medicinal our plants are, and healthy, and relating to, what did God give us initially on this earth, how beautiful that is, and aligning that in such a beautiful way to live, and in following the Savior and in the lessons that he taught and the ways in which we are to grow ourselves. I love the words that you've been inspired to choose. And so I'm excited about the bullet points and the ideas that you have and how it relates to where I'm at and what God wants me to do. So
Awesome.
I'm not, I get the gardening thing, but I'm not a Tyree. She's like the master, amazing, beautiful, like fruits and vegetables. Like I love to eat them. But it's just, so I appreciate that. And I'm excited to be able to translate it into
Right. And that's what it's all about.
Individually. So I'm
Yep.
excited for that.
Exactly. Thank you so much. And that's exactly what it's about. It's translating this into how does this apply to what I'm creating. And we've got a couple, Tyree says it's so much more resonant, relaxed. Yeah, totally. And think about it, the earth has been multiplying and replenishing itself for thousands of years and maybe millions of years. And it must work. And so, we see the results of it every single day, every single year, as we flow with nature, as we see how nature flows, everything is always successful, it always works. So why wouldn't we want to, try that out? And I can promise you, if you try this, You're going to learn so much. Tyree.
I was just thinking, you know how in the springtime during the Passover, they eat all the bitter greens to clean themselves out. And you think about it, if you look at Ayurvedic practices and medicine, they believe in only eating 3 meals a day and not snacking or grazing. And you give yourself like a 15-hour window of not eating because it allows your body to cleanse and digest and take care of all, and will not, I mean, it does digest for a little while, but it might like clean out your body and take care of other things that your body doesn't get the chance to do when you're eating all of the time. And I thought this sounds a little bit like that, because we are giving ourselves that, like, through the different seasons,
Oh,
we're
interesting.
giving
Yeah.
we're giving ourselves the chance to go through those different processes. Even like when we eat seasonally, like we are storing, like we're having higher, like denser food in the winter, and it's more light and cleansing in the springtime, and nourishing in the summer and fall. Anyway, it's interesting to compare the two, and it seems like there are some correlations.
Awesome. Thank you. I feel like everything, God created the perfect system for us. Everything goes along with these laws of creation, the system of creation that he created the earth with. And so, yeah, there's definitely correlations. Anything that is truth, there's going to be some sort of correlation with that. So thank you. Lots of couple little chat notes in the chat here. I just want to read. Mother Earth, the love of mothering, caring for, and being in the flow. Awesome. And that was Betsy. And then Anna Maria says, during gestation, a fetus or seed becomes organized and grows rapidly, absorbing nutrients, allowing the natural order of creation to happen without any thought on our part. Yes. So perhaps during our gestation time, we need to be open to receive all the nutrients our heavenly parents have to offer us, and write down those words that give us to nourish who we are. Wow, beautiful. Yeah, just take all of it in and nourish yourself and grow rapidly. I think part of December was go in and allow your roots to grow deeper so that you can grow taller. So that's part of it too. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. All right, we're going to go ahead and shift over to thank you so much for your comments. We're going to go ahead and shift over to our number 2 point that we're going to be focusing on today, understanding your purpose in the kingdom. So I'm just going to go through this, and just kind of as a last note before we move on to that is not to rush the process. I think about Jesus Christ, and when he was on the earth and going from place to place, he was never in a rush. It was never like, let's see how many people we can, baptize today or whatever. It was just like he walked from place to place, and if somebody needed something, he would stop. And if a bunch of people wanted to hear from him, he would go sit on a hillside and he would talk for a little while, and then he would feed them, and then he'd go get on a ship. And there was never a rush about anything, and we always seem to be in a super rush. So yeah, you follow this, and then you're going to feel much less rushed in your life. Okay, so understanding your purpose in the kingdom. That's the second point that we're going to talk about. As I tended my garden throughout the year, almost every day I was seeing God's abundance and parallels and analogies to Christ's life, mission, and ministry, his life's mission and his ministry. And we know that Jesus taught in parables, and there's 2 different reasons why he taught in parables. First of all, was the people were uneducated in the ways of God, and he needed to talk to them on their level. They were, they maybe were idol worshipers, or they never even heard of a son of God coming to earth. There was a lot of people that didn't understand. And so he used stories that they could relate to, like the masters. A lot of people understood this concept of masters and stewards and servants and things like that, and vineyards and talents, gardens, things like that. He would use those as analogies, or he didn't call them analogies. He would just tell stories. And then he would hope that people would kind of grasp the meaning from those stories that he told. That's the first reason, was that they didn't really understand these principles. And so he was educating them in a way, on a level that they could understand. The second reason why Christ taught and Jesus taught in parables was that everything points to Jesus Christ, but Jesus Christ was him. And so it would have been really odd for him to go around preaching about himself. And so he was, him as the Son of God was a new concept at the time. And since the people were just learning, they needed some way to transition to raise them up to where they could actually see him for who he was while he was standing in front of them. And I've wondered sometimes if I had been there when, I like to believe that I would, but if I had been there when Jesus was there, would I have recognized him? Would I have really known who he really was? And so I feel like that's another reason why he taught in parables, was to help people come to him and bring, be able to see him within the story. He was teaching them the principles that would help them enter the kingdom of heaven through him before he had finished his mission. So we know, in hindsight, we look back, he performed the atonement. We know that through him, we can enter into the kingdom of heaven, but they didn't have that. He had not even been raised on the cross yet. He was still with them. So he knew that he would only be there for a short time and would be moving on to a next city. His ministry wasn't even that long, so he wouldn't be with them, period, for a very long time. So he left with them with something memorable, a story that they could consider, and it was like a seed that could be watered and nurtured as news of his miracles reached them later, or when he died, and these 3 days of darkness that followed after he died. And things that would happen that he'd be like, oh yeah, Jesus said something about that. And there would be memorable things that they could go back to. So I learned that through, following this, the seasons, and allowing myself to flow with the natural, the nature of order that God put in place, it was like me living out these parables that Jesus told. And I saw real life examples of how God provides abundantly for us. I experienced firsthand the pain and anguish of the master of the vineyard that he talks about, who was grieved over losing a vine. I had several beautiful squash plants that, they were doing super, super well, super lush and green. And then the next day I went out and it was totally covered with squash bugs. And I seriously just felt this anguish in my heart. It was like, it's too many. And I just went in and I was just like picking them off and squeezing them, killing them as fast as I could. But there were so many. And I was just like grieved at the thought of losing those plants. And I remember talking to my husband, and he's like, let's see, if we can do something about it. And so we looked online, we got some stuff, we tried to, and we garden organically. So we used turmeric and, tried some other things, and we were able to save, and the plants were saved. And just that joy that we felt in saving something that seemed past saving. And these parables that I now have to go back to, they're super memorable for me, to be able to relate to some of the principles that Christ was talking about when he was here. And so when we do life according to nature, we're having firsthand experience with the way that Jesus taught and the way that he still teaches us. There's so many examples in nature that we could go to that give us examples of, how principles that are good to live our life by, laws of higher laws that we can live our life by it. Does anybody have any thoughts or questions about that before we move on to our final point? Anybody having an aha moment? You can just raise your hand or type yes. Okay, I'll let you guys just gestate on that for a bit. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to our third point that we're going to be talking about today, and that is trusting that your life is easiest, aligning your mindset and your actions with the times and seasons. So this is kind of like, I've been doing my life this way for 30 years. Like, why is it, how can I trust that this is going to be any different? And so that's what we want to talk about right now. There are little things that you can do throughout all this time, throughout the whole year. Like we've talked about, the goals that you can set. It's important to give the time to what is supposed to be happening when it's supposed to be happening. God set up the laws of nature to be more or less precise. All right. And I say more or less precise because, you need this much water. Okay. Might be a little less, might be a little more, whatever. I don't know if any of you know this, but there is a chilling requirement to produce the best crop of fruit on a fruit tree. How many of you, raise your hand if you know about chilling requirements? This is something that I just learned about just a few years ago. I used to hate the snow. Colleen says yes, she lives on a farm. She knows. I used to think, oh, I wish it didn't have to snow and be cold in the winter here in Utah. But I learned about this chilling requirement, and now I'm like, oh, I hope we have really good freezing days, because I want to have my apple trees be super sweet, and I want to have an abundant crop. So I'm going to read this off of davewilson.com. This is just it was the first one that came up when I Googled it about chilling requirements. It says, as the days become shorter and cooler in fall, deciduous trees stop growing, store energy, lose their leaves, and enter a state of dormancy, which protects them from the freezing temperatures of winter. Okay. So if they don't go dormant, so think about this as you are thinking about yourself going in and letting yourself rest. If you don't go dormant, if you still have, all your leaves and you're trying to continue producing, then if chilling, weather comes in, then it's damaging to those trees. They get rid of all the leaves. And so then all of their sap and everything kind of stays like within the tree. It will not resume normal growth, including flowering and fruit set, until it has experienced an amount of cold equal to its minimum chilling requirement, followed by a certain amount of heat. And there's more, but that's all I'll read. But basically, if the tree does not receive that somewhat precise chilling requirement and other things, throughout the year, then it's not going to have as good of a crop. And if it doesn't go dormant when it's supposed to, it could die if there's a hard frost that comes. So just kind of ponder on that and allow that to flow over into like you and your business and your personal life, and how, why it's important to be doing the things you're supposed to be doing when you're supposed to be doing them. Colleen, did you have something you wanted to share?
I was just, earlier I was playing the piano, and I love the song Lead Kindly Light. And I've been practicing it, but I've practiced it so much that I'm almost used to making the same mistakes in the same place. And I think that happens often with people's gardens. They're just used to messing it up and not getting the harvest, and just thinking, this isn't what the Lord has for me. And they sabotage themselves and don't practice effectively, and don't follow through with things that they know that they should do in a timely manner. And everything has its seasons. If you could just see the processes that happen, you would gain confidence and have more of an ability to see what is an effective way to practice, with the seasons, with the rhythms of the earth, with the,
And those
Oh
are the
my
time that's why it's important to go into those dormant states, right? That's why it's important to go into like the rest stage and, do some journaling, maybe, read some books or something and get some new information so that you can actually not continue making the same mistakes.
and not continue so that you just feel frustrated in anything you do, so you just feel like giving up on everything, which is
Yeah.
I've planted a garden where I just, you know, after a bit I just feel like I don't even want to water because I feel like so many things are going awry. I go out there and it's just covered in grasshoppers or something like that, and grasshoppers are a little bit different than squash bugs. They move fast.
Yeah, they're hard to catch.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Colleen. It is true that each one of those stages that we go through, each of those months, there's a purpose to it, and it will help us have a more abundant harvest at the end. Anna Marie says, I believe I experience these for seasons or stages not only once a year, but every month with my menstrual cycle. I need to honor this natural order every month. During menses, I can rest and give myself the self-care I need, etc., for each week of the female cycle. Awesome.
Wileen,
Yeah.
I was going to say instinctively, I think instinctively I knew and I know and you feel it. Sometimes you just push it aside because, but this time I said, look, it has to stop and I need to focus on one thing. So I'm still focusing on something because that it's real estate. I don't think real estate stops. However, I can see how I slowed down for sure. And I felt it instinctively.
And you can still be, like I said, even like in all the months, there's something being produced, I mean, there's some sort of creation happening. And so, yeah, I mean, there's still going to be things happening in your business. But for the goals that you set and what you're focusing on and who you are during those months gets to change. And I will tell you that if you will follow that natural flow, your business will be a lot easier. You'll have more natural flow to it. You'll probably attract more people because just this natural flow is very attractive. It's like easy. It doesn't feel, it feels so easy and just
I experienced that today. So I do.
awesome.
I get it.
Awesome.
To a point. Maybe there's more to get, I'm sure, but
Wonderful.
thank you.
Awesome. Okay, so if there's a somewhat precise system for fruit trees, and these trees can go on multiplying and replenishing themselves year after year after year, then it stands to reason that there is a similar system set up for humans. And I do know that everything follows this natural flow. So as you start allowing yourself to step into that natural flow, you're going to start noticing so many more things that you didn't notice before, and life will be so much easier and more abundant. I can promise you that. Okay, so I'm sure your mind is just like going crazy right now, thinking of all the things that you have in the past maybe tried to avoid or tried to do when maybe you're not supposed to be doing it, or you forgot to do this because you were so busy doing this other thing or whatever. So I'm just going to encourage you to really allow yourself to take this time, the rest of December, the next couple of months before we start January, to rest and to go deep, let your roots grow deep, get some learning under your belt so that you can, when you get into January, then you are going to be, what's the word? Gestate. You can gestate in a really powerful way. All right, so we are done with what I want to present to you. And thank you so much for your comments. Mary says the phrase "relax in faith" comes to mind. I love that. That's definitely something that we could do in December. We can relax in faith. All right, so I'm going to give you, like I said, these more full instructions for the months. So I'll be sending that out to you in your email. And so then what? So I've given you January, but then after January, You will have this seasonal mindset chart, and you're also going to have the sheet that I give you. But if you really want to commit to this, it's so much easier to implement something like this as a group. And how many of you agree? Raise your hand or put yes if you feel like when you're starting a new habit or implementing something new, especially if it's going to be a year-long thing. Yes, we've got some hands raised. Yes, absolutely. Okay, great. So to stay focused on something for that length of time, I really felt like a group is the best way to do that. So I had an idea to stay connected throughout the year where we can learn and grow together, okay? And this year, 2020, has been a little bit of a challenge for the world at large, but I haven't felt any of the stress and anxiety. And I know it's a problem, and most people, have felt that as a problem. In fact, I would say that most of the people, it's the word anxiety has come up. I don't know how many times in those little 15-minute calls that I offer. When I have somebody schedule one of those 15-minute calls, almost always, I would say probably 90% of the time, the word anxiety has been in there. And so that, I think, is the word that people have felt the most in this 2020, and anxiety thinking about going into 2021. And so I know that it's a problem because there's been a lot of people that have felt that. I also know that those who are with me consistently, I haven't felt it. And I know, those of you who are, part of the Architecture of Life, or you're on the gratitude call every morning, feel free to chime in, and say what you've been feeling, because my experience is that those who are with me on a consistent basis are not feeling that anxiety, that it's not something that has been a problem.
I 100% agree.
Awesome. Thanks, Mary.
Yeah, I really agree as well. I just really feel like anxiety isn't in my vocabulary for anything that's going on. I mean, my heart goes out to the things that are going on around me, and I don't feel like I've definitely had things in my world, the effect of mask and whatnot. But no, I think fear of any of that. I mean, I really trust in the process, and I'm like the workaround girl. There's always a way, and my trust has been even deeper and stronger in the Lord through all of this, and this year particularly. And I love my life. I live with joy, and yeah, I'm home more, but it's just a shift. It's not a bad shift.
Awesome. Awesome.
What I noticed when this all first happened, I was fine in my own little world, but when I went out into the masses of others, whoa, I picked up on their anxiety. So
Okay.
it's
So we know
keeping,
what's happening. Yeah.
yeah. So I did pick up on it, but then I learned ways to separate myself from it.
Awesome.
And grounding with the gratitude call was huge, but I took a break from that for a couple of months during that time. So, but I also took a break from going outside or into public places very much.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Suzanne says, agree. Colleen says, I feel if I start the day in gratitude with you, I gain more inspiration, even more peace. Awesome. It gives us something to do, right? I think, that people don't have these, these groups or, places that they can go where they can feel that. They don't have anything to do. All they can do is, be amongst a bunch of people that are anxiety ridden. So anyway, enough about that. I know I have no idea what challenges 2021 is going to bring, but I do know that if we keep eyes on Christ and we come together in that, we won't feel it. My experience and the testimonials I receive almost daily tell me that it's easier to keep eyes on Christ as a community than it is to do it one-on-one. We can definitely pray, we can keep eyes on Christ alone, but it's so much easier when we do it as a group. Mary says, gratitude raises our vibration higher than the anxiety around us. Yes, I love that, because yeah, we're not on that same plane as everybody else. I love that. Thank you. So I feel also that as Christians, we really need to band together. There's strength in coming together. And I can promise you that the easiest way to do life is following the natural flow of creation that God set up in the beginning. God and Christ are the only means of stability that we do have, that we can depend on. So whatever you do, keep eyes on them. And, we do have the gratitude call on a daily basis. And then I have another opportunity that I'm going to be sharing with you right now. I'm going to put this in the chat for you guys, and I'll put it in the replay. This is, I introduced this last month, I think, or 2 months ago. I have a new membership community called the Seven Gateways Membership, the Seven Gateways Community. And this is the place where we're going to come together. That's $47 a month, or there is a lifetime membership option if you'd prefer just to pay it all at once, just to pay one amount and just be done. And anybody that wants to join that group, that membership community, that is where we're going to be coming together every single month. There's a group call every single month, and we're going to be focusing on this, your seasonal mindset, and allowing your life to flow according to the natural order of things, stepping into that natural rhythm and order of creation. So that's what our focus is going to be for 2021 in the Seven Gateways community. I do have some other things that I'm going to be sharing with you as well. And I'm actually in the process of editing my book for a second edition that's coming out. So you'll be getting those things too. But this will be something that we talk about in our group calls. And I just feel like this is going to be really powerful. Anna Maria says, we are meant to be connected to each other. This is also part of the natural order. Yes, I'm writing that down, Mary. Thank you. Awesome. All right. So that is the, that's the link. If you would like to participate in this group, that's what we're going to be doing all of next year. We're going to be focusing on this natural flow and lots of other stuff in there too. And not only is it just, the learning about this, the growth and the learning that can happen here within that group, there's a lot of community resources that you have access to that will help you with overcoming, anxiety and, being stuck. You've got access to the Seven Gateways book and all the online course that goes along with that. I mean, there's just like so much that comes with that. It's the power of community that will help you stay focused and consistent throughout the year. I think the biggest temptation that we have is to work during the months that we're supposed to be doing literally almost nothing. Just let it, it's like the baby gestating, it's like we just have to be eating and the baby's growing. We don't have to be doing anything. And that's the biggest temptation, is just to be working during those times when we're supposed to be doing other things. And then when it's time to work, we're either discouraged because there were no results yet, or we work haphazardly because we didn't get time to plan, or we're tired because we were already working when we were supposed to be resting or whatever. So there's a lot of things that can happen if, we are trying to stay focused ourselves. But if we come together as a group, I feel like, this is going to be a lot more powerful. You know what? I just had a thought too, because we've talked a lot about creating and goal setting and stuff like that. And I have a mini course that's $97 on my website. It's called The Secrets of Genesis. And it's all of the, there's 7, I believe, I haven't looked at it for a while, but I think there's 7 secrets, 9, I think it's 9 secrets written in the first chapter of Genesis about how God created the earth. And this mini course goes through all 9 of those secrets. And there's a section in there that teaches about vision boards. And I think that would be really helpful. Do you guys think that would be helpful to have a little bit of training on vision boards and to know how, and in a way that it actually fits in with what we're learning about the way that God created the earth. If you think it would be helpful, just raise your hand or say yes. Okay, there's 1, 2. Because if you don't think, I'm thinking that I'll include that, but if it's probably not going to be.
I think it's always a good thing to tweak vision boards,
Okay.
learn more, tweak them.
Okay. Because I know some people, okay. Because I know a lot of people kind of have their way, but I'll tell you, this is like, you talk about like vision boards 101. This is like vision board 702. Betsy says, I love an alternative, a more aligned way to look at vision boards. Yeah, because there are a lot of ways to do vision boards, but not a lot of ways to do it or not a lot of people are sharing how to do it on the Lord's Way to Wealth. So I'll definitely share that. So what I'll do is I'm going to include that with your membership. So I'm just going to actually get that in the membership community right now. Like it'll be there for next week. Today's Thursday. It'll be there no later than Monday or Tuesday. Okay, we'll say Tuesday next week. So you'll have access to that. So you'll have the thing that I'm going to send you that has like the bullet points in all the months. You'll have the Secrets of Genesis online course, mini course. That's normally a $97 value. And then, becoming part of the community, you'll have that monthly call with me. Plus there's going to be more and more things that will be added all throughout the year. We're going to have tons of things throughout the year. Okay. Any last questions or comments? Colleen says, vision board is something I think I overcomplicate. Yes, definitely. I need guidance. So yeah, don't overcomplicate it. Super easy. And I clean mine off every week. So, if you have a vision board that's 2 years old, it just needs to be cleaned off.
I just cleaned mine off and it was like, wow. And I said, that's it, too much stuff. And I just narrowed it down. What is your, what's the one-time fee?
$5.97. And that link, I think it has 3 different ways to participate. There's $47 per month, $5.97 if you want to just do the lifetime. And then there is a higher price version that actually has some private calls with me. You'll get 2 private calls with me, a gateway assessment call, so that we identify all of the limiting beliefs that you have in all the different 7 gateways. It's super powerful, and also your purpose call. So those would be included with the higher level. All right. So grab that link. We're going to be ending the call, so that will go away. And so you want to make sure that you get that. I will put it in. I'll also put it in the replay. You'll have the link again. But I encourage you to take action on that pretty quickly. If you're feeling right now like it's something that you do want to participate in, if you feel like, yes, I need a group to be able to help me stay focused, keep eyes on Christ, and to allow myself to stay in this natural flow throughout the year. At the end of next year, you're going to look back and you'll be like, that was the easiest year that I've ever had. I promise you. I've given you a lot of promises, and I can promise you those things because I've experienced it, and I know that it's not just for me. These are things that are promised by God because it is after his natural flow and his natural order. So I know that you'll experience it as well. Well, love you guys. Thank you so much for being here, and appreciate we went over just a little bit. So I appreciate you staying with me, and I will get this posted ASAP. and we'll be really excited to welcome you into our new membership community if you've decided that you want to participate in that. And looking forward to this next year, 2021. Hope you guys have an awesome Christmas and week between Christmas and New Year's. Happy holidays, and we'll look forward to talking to you again very, very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen. It was awesome.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Mhm.